Good afternoon, everyone. It's 4:30. I'd like to call this first of 2019 meeting of the Moorhead Public Service Commission to order. I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve the agenda.
Got a motion to approve?
Second.
Second. Got a motion to approve and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion is approved. I would entertain a motion for the consent agenda, but I understand we might have one question we want to deal with before we...
Yeah, I would like to remove item 10, not to go through the agreement. It's about the water tower art agreement, but I think we have a couple of things to talk about just to get everybody on the same baseline of what we're going to do. I'm very happy that this was done, but I would like to remove it from 10.
Yeah, we've got a vacancy to fill and so forth. Might as well just get that taken care of. So nothing heavy, just a couple discussion items.
So I move to approve the consent agenda minus item 10.
Ready. Got a motion? Got a second? Second. Anybody? John? Got a motion, a second to approve the consent agenda as revised. Call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion is approved. Customers to be heard and recognitions. Let me take a moment at this point to welcome everyone back into the new year. New places, new faces. I grew this on a dare, so what the heck. But some new faces in the crowd as well. So I really wanted to take an opportunity this evening to recognize some additions to our team. We had some appointments last night at the city council meeting. We also had an election here not too long ago, and so first and foremost, I'd like to welcome our new mayor, Jonathan Judd, who just arrived a couple of moments ago to sit in and maybe, Mr. Mayor, if you'd care to just say hello to the group. I don't know if you've even had a chance to meet everyone, but we do appreciate you coming in to say hello and be part of our meeting this afternoon.
Thank you, Chairperson Anderson. Everyone, hi. My name is Jonathan Judd. I am the new mayor. Thank you for inviting me today. I look forward to working with each and every one of you. I've done my research to know that this is a very important entity in our city, and you deliver services quality to our residents. I look forward to working with you all. And so just being brief, and thank you very much for the invite.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Also appointed last night, we unfortunately received the resignation of Cheryl Dyson, who had been a member of our group for just about a year, just over a year. But Cheryl has moved on to another responsibility and a role within the city, in the city prosecutor's office. And so Cheryl resigned last month, and as things are shifting and changing at City Hall, we also picked up an appointment of Mary Daly, who is going to fill into that role. Mary's sitting with us today. She was just appointed last night, and there's a question about whether she's actually official yet or not. So we at least invited her up to the desk so she can get started with us. And whether we're voting or not is we're unsure of. So, but Mary, welcome. Good to have you with us. And last but not least, among the new faces, Steve Gertz from City Council. Longtime friend over at City Council has slid into one of the liaison spots for us from the City Council to Moorhead Public Service. So, Steve, good to have you with us, too. You bet. Yeah. And I don't see any other new faces out there. The rest of you all look pretty familiar. So, all right. Let's move on with the rest of the agenda. Customers to be heard. I see none. Recognitions, Mr. General Manager.
I have none.
You have none?
I have none.
You've been busy, so we'll let you off the hook. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. Old business. John.
Done.
It's always that way.
We'll start here.
Why do anything different on this one? So, yeah.
Well, it's probably really good to have the mayor and Steve here with us. I was just looking for an update on the land agreement that was put out to the city probably 2 or 3 months ago. Chuck was going to look into it, and Heidi was going to look into it, but without them being here, I'm not sure if either one of you are up to speed on this. agreement here. It was drafted some months ago based on the understanding that if the utility would pay for part of the underpass work, that there would be an agreement of how we're going to proceed with land purchases and acquisitions and easements and a number of items. I think as far as John probably sent that to the manager's office in September timeframe. And as last time our meeting was held, it hadn't been brought up to the council or nobody was aware of it. So I was just wondering if that has been done at this point, and if not, when could that be done?
I could certainly bring that to the council. We have not had any formal discussion on that. In December, we only had one meeting, the second Monday, because of the holiday. So our December was kind of short by one meeting. And then we just had our first meeting of the year last night. So I appreciate the heads up on it, and I'll follow up with Heidi and Chris and see when we can get that on our agenda to have that discussion.
All right, great. Thank you.
Anything else, John? That'll do it. Okay. Other old business?
Nope.
Okay. Mary, you haven't been around long enough to have any old business, so. I got nothing. You got nothing, okay. All righty. Reports. City Council, anything further from your perspective there, Steve, from recent actions? Or?
No, not recent. There is a RFP that is due today for a parcel of land that the city is looking to develop along 4th Street. But other than that, I don't think there's been any further discussion on whether we are going to straighten 4th Street or leave it the way it is. I think there was some discussions of the Center Avenue work that might be an option, but that hasn't been really discussed too much further right now. But
And we had discussed that to some degree here because of some of the utility work that would be affected by such a change. So,
and I'm guessing, I can't speak for the entire council, if we have an RFP out for a land that's adjacent to that, I'm assuming that would be probably off the table if they're going to pursue, a developer to develop that site. We wouldn't want to develop the site and then straighten the road. So
yeah, you'd want to get.
Yeah, it might be
Tit before
might be
tat.
backwards there, but
Yeah, right.
we'll have to see how that RFP process goes and whether they accept it and if they get any responses or they accept it. So.
Yeah. Okay.
So I have a question, not to you, Steve, but to the team. Did we move utilities when they did that curve thing, or are utilities still on the original? Do we know, or maybe you guys can check into that?
Chris Knudsen, Water Division Manager. With respect to 4th Street for the water main replacement project that's proposed, we actually have a diagram of that in the packet. The water main location kind of runs underneath the water feature by US Bank and runs essentially to the east of 4th Street. We're going to keep it in about the same location, so whether they change the alignment of that road or not, it's immaterial to the design of what we're doing there. One of the considerations that we're working with on the city is we're currently planning on using that lot for construction staging, the one I believe that Steve is talking about. So,
the development site?
Yeah, so that's depending on when the development occurs. We'll maybe have to alter those plans, but there's a lot of items up in the air still with respect to that site. So working through that.
Because our project with the city on the replacement is a 2-year project now, right? Or is it 1 year?
It's a 1-year project. It was originally
It was 2 years, right?
Right.
It was originally proposed as a 2-year project, whereby we would have constructed it last year and the city would perform their project this year. The plan for this year is that basically we would do our work from May to early July. Then the city will step in with their project, and their project has a pretty diverse scope of street rehab and some landscaping features and some other items as well. But our priority will be as minimally invasive as possible, get out with respect to the water main replacement. So.
Cool, thanks.
I think the city project is mill and overlay, and the curbs still stay, and then some restriping, and like Chris notes, maybe some landscape features is part of that.
Correct. Yep.
Travis Schmidt, Electrical Engineering Manager. Based off the maps that we've got, one of our feeders parallels the current 4th Street North route. Everything's on the east side, so depending on how things come out and if there's adjustments that need to be made, it might impact us as well. So we'll have to keep an eye on that and find out where everything goes with the RFP.
Cool. Thanks.
Okay. Anything else, Steve, from City Council? Okay, thank you very much. Good to have you with us. Thank you. Public Service Commissioners, anything from you all? John? No?
Was the
Chris?
water tower.
Okay. Some activity there.
We'll be talking about that, so.
Okay, yeah, that's on our agenda, so,
Right.
yeah, okay. All right, Mr. General Manager.
There's 3 items on the written report that you may want to take a look at. The one Commissioner Regala asked about last meeting I believe we had on the commission policies and the administrative policies. So what we did is put together just a report on the ones that were changed last year in 2018. And there was really only 1 commission policy that we changed and 4 administrative policies. And then we do follow that up with emails to the commission so they kind of know that we've adjusted those policies. Of course, the commission policies, you would know that you would have approved those, but the administrative policies are approved by myself. So, but we do provide those to you for your information. Number 2 is the 50th annual intergovernmental retreat, always the last Friday, I believe, in January. And if you have a chance to go to that, it is a very good meeting where a lot of the local and regional government officials are usually in attendance with that one. This year they're going to have it at the new law enforcement center up north. And if you need to be registered for that, you can contact me or Cheryl and we'll get you registered.
That has been a good meeting. I've attended 3 or 4 times, I suppose, over the years. But if you can fit it into your schedule on that Friday, it is worthwhile. And then
Number 3, Travis Schmidt put together an update on some of the costs for the 20 First Street grade separation project. And I think the good news is that we're under the 1.4, or we anticipate being under the $1.4 million for relocation of the transmission lines and the distribution lines. So that is good news. And then we'll be coming to you with some final information on that. So, and if you need any detailed information, Travis can answer that.
Yeah, that's a statement on that. So even though we may be below our estimate, if there's money that we should get from people who didn't do their job,
Yep.
right, then the city and us, we should really get together to make that happen.
Yes.
So that nobody thinks just because we're low, let's forget about this.
Yep.
Right?
And that is part of the agreement as well. So that language is written into the agreement, but we don't have an agreement on that agreement yet. So, no.
So Steve, just for you, so what's happened is a contractor may not have done the job they were supposed to do and have caused us additional cost. Because we have no relationship, MPS has no relationship with the contractor, we need to work with the city to go to the contractor and say, here's what you owe us. And that's really what this is about. And I think we have been working with the city in general on trying to get that done. And the agreement that Bill was referring to is that agreement we talked about earlier, which would memorialize that going forward as well. So, because we have about
And I did
60,000.
notice that in the report there, that there was some charges to the contractor for some work that caused you additional work.
Yep.
Yeah, I do have, Travis Schmidt, Electrical, I do have I'm trying to schedule a meeting with Bob Zimmerman to talk about these final costs as well, to make sure we get them covered. And then we will be sending a bill to Ames Construction for the roughly $3,000 for facility damages.
But that was a small amount.
That's a small amount. Yeah,
bigger
there's about
amounts, right?
70,000 that, it needs to be discussed with the city.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, accolades to Travis and Joe and their staffs that, relocated all that electrical equipment
Yeah.
away from this project before the project started. So, if you remember, the commission took a look at this and said, even though we don't have all the agreements in place, we need to get out of the way of this project because we had significant facilities that were in the way. So did that.
And we were still in the way.
Well, I mean, we're getting out of the way.
We're
Yeah, we
out
are
of the
now.
way, so.
Yeah, right, okay. Anything else on that topic, folks?
Thanks a lot.
That's all I had.
Bill, I don't know if everybody is aware of your meeting with West Central and the state. Maybe it would be appropriate to just give a brief summary of what took place there and what your plans are for the future.
Yes.
That, and then we've got an additional item on the agenda today just for an explanation as well. So
Pardon me?
we have that other item on the agenda before we get away from general manager's report
Okay.
on the Department of Pollution Control.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
let's get to that during manager's report too.
Do those both right now. Okay. Well, maybe I'll have Nancy Lund get up and talk a little bit about the Department of Commerce, and I can kind of fill in the blanks. And the broad overview, I guess, is that we work with the West Central, West Central Minnesota. I don't remember what their total name was. Nancy will have that. To provide low-income assistance. Nancy, I'm just going to let you start, and then I'll fill in the blanks if there's questions.
Good idea.
Okay, West Central Minnesota Communities Action is the vendor that works with the state of Minnesota to provide low-income heating assistance program, which is funded from the federal government. It flows through the state, and then it flows to heat and electric vendors throughout the state of Minnesota. So we work closely with West Central to administer the direction of their heating assistance funds from that vendor down to the MPS utility bill. Without that agreement in place and a working relationship with West Central, I'll just call them that for short, those funds would go directly to the customers or to the clients of West Central and would be possibly used by those customers for things other than payment of their heat and electricity charges. So for the last couple of years, we've been working with West Central and working through some issues and maybe some IT-related processes and things like that. And we'll continue to work with them. We had a good meeting on January 2nd where we started some of those discussions. There were some things that came up, I think, that we could reach some agreement on how to handle certain situations. We've still got to work through some other issues, but I think we made progress. One of the big issues that's before us is the number of items that is on the Moorhead Public Service utility bill. So with this program, we work with a lot of different assistance providers for all kinds of utility services, but with West Central, the funds are dedicated to only be applied on the electric portion of a utility bill or the heat portion of a utility bill. If we're talking Excel, it might be gas or something like that. But very strict enforcement of only using those funds for specified services on the utility bill. So we've worked through, made some adjustments to make sure we're complying with statutes and only using those funds for the electric portion of the Moorhead Public Service bill. We've got some other issues that the city will be working through with the council as far as, how to continue collections for the non-electric portions of the utility bill. So that's one of the big issues we're working on. The others are small technicalities, making sure we're on the same page as far as when we're talking the same items, trying to get the computer systems to work together, and I think we're making progress.
Nancy, what's the timetable for continuing meetings?
We have our second meeting set up for this Friday, so we'll be going down to West Central and meeting with them again, and we'll continue to, probably we meet every couple weeks until we get some of these issues resolved, and we're both on the same page as far as understanding, the program requirements and how MPS can go about meeting those requirements and still, run our collection process.
Are we engaged with city folks on the city portion of the bill so that we have an understanding of what it is that we can do going forward in the collection of that ineligible portion of the bill, those items that can't be paid for by the department?
I think that issue has been passed back to the city manager, who will talk with, will give us clear direction on what they would like us to do as far as collection of those other fees. And so I think that part of that conversation will be taking place, between the city manager and the council. And if they wish to redirect us on how to collect the city fees, we'll be asking them to provide us direction on that. Right now, we do use the electric meter or the water meter or those services as the collection tool for those fees. The Department of Commerce is suggesting that we not do that any longer.
When you say we're using the meter as a tool, you mean the discontinued?
We're right. In our collection process, we do, it's the last step. The last thing we want to do would be to terminate service to encourage payment. And that happens to about 1% of our customers each month. And they're asking us to no longer use that tool. And it would leave some services unpaid.
Okay. Questions? Chris?
How many, are ratepayers being serviced by West Central right now currently? And what percentage do we have an idea of what percentage of our ratepayers are getting assistance?
Yeah, we have about 18,000 electric meters in town, and I think last year's number was there was about 1,200 customers that were receiving heating or energy assistance.
Okay.
To date, yet this year, I think we just looked at the number, and it's about 900 customers right now are receiving that heating assistance. And so what normally happens is they get an allotment of the federal dollars to apply to their account. We receive that over a several-month period. Our expectation is the customer pays the difference between those two amounts. And we treat that utility bill as one total utility bill.
Thank you.
Further questions? Mary, you may feel free to participate, short of the voting. Okay. Please.
So
John?
just for clarification, Nancy, so in the past when we got a disbursement from West Central, it was applied in an account, and if it wasn't for the full amount that was past due, there would be a disconnect notice sent out, correct?
Generally, yes,
Okay.
yes.
So now
yes.
what the state is suggesting that we should change that policy and just apply their disbursement for the utility bill, and then we have to determine what we're going to do with the difference between the utility bills and the city fees.
Correct. So when we get that payment, it gets applied towards the electric portion of the bill, which leaves a lot of other services. So for example, if West Central is going to send us 4 payments that cover 75% of the customer's electric bill over 4 months, we might have 25% of the electric bill plus 100% of all the other city charges unpaid, then that we still have to figure out a way to collect those charges.
And that's what we're waiting from city direction as far as how we want to pursue that, or what.
Correct.
How we want to
I think
proceed.
the city is looking at a number of issues. We've had City Attorney John Shockley, by our side in this process, and looking at items like, where, who the DOC governs and local control issues and things like that. So we've been working closely with him too throughout this process.
Nancy, how are we proceeding to have that conversation with our friends at City Hall so that we all end up at the same place, especially for these conversations with West Central? My concern is that we not be negotiating and conversing from either a like or same point of view.
I had a conversation with one of the people down at West Central just a short while ago this afternoon, and we're making sure that information is relayed back to the city, and waiting for direction from them. So I think that issue is between the City of Moorhead and the Department of Commerce. They need to figure that out, and we have relayed that information back. I didn't attend that meeting earlier this month, but I think that was the direction that there's some things MPS will be able to work through with West Central, and then there's some things that the city will need to work through with West Central.
Do we have someone that's participating Friday from City Hall in the conversation? Since it's about elements of the bill that reflect city fees.
Right now, no. I mean, there's been a couple of communications back and forth. So
Okay.
the Department of Commerce and the City of Moorhead are not participating in the meeting this Friday. So this Friday is MPS staff and West Central staff.
What will we represent then as our ability to collect the rest of the fee?
We're going
Besides cutting off electric service,
Right.
which
We'll be
has been
deferring
the
that
practice.
conversation back to those two bodies. So I don't think West Central and MPS can solve that issue. So those bodies will need to re-engage and have those discussions.
What's the point of the meeting on Friday?
We're going to walk through some of the more technical issues, I think. You know, how notifications go, how the funds flow back and forth, what happens when a customer runs out of energy assistance money. You know, when they are no longer under that program, but then they revert back to our collection process as far as the electric service.
To answer your question maybe a little bit more directly, or maybe this is part of your question, is kind of what are we doing right now? Have we made any changes based on the Department of Commerce and cities, conflict that they have? And Nancy mentioned that Attorney John Shockley is very involved. Chris Volkers, city manager, has been involved in those conversations. But as of right now, we are still following the same practices we've been following for years.
Many years, yeah.
Where we do disconnect electric or water service in order to collect the entire bill, which includes the city charges. That's the issue that the Department of Commerce does not like. And that has been relayed to, council people and city manager and city attorney and us. But we haven't changed that based on our conversations yet. And in the conversation that we had on January 2nd, Mark and I were there, Mark Moylan and I were there, and we asked that question directly because we made changes about 14 months ago, a slight modification in how our practice was based on recipients getting help from West Central. So while they're getting actively getting payments from West Central, we do not disconnect anyone as long as their electric is fully paid. Once they're done getting assistance, however, then our collection practices resume and they really have to pay their entire bill. And the Department of Commerce verbally during this meeting, they didn't necessarily agree with it, but they were okay with us doing that. Since that time, they've sent us correspondence that says, yeah, we really don't think you should be doing that.
At any point in the 12 months?
Yeah, we haven't gotten anything in writing, anything verbally that says what the hard and fast black line is. It's all gray at this point. But it appears that as long as they've, at some point, at some time, gotten some kind of assistance, you can't disconnect them to collect city service charges. You can disconnect them to get electricity or water because those are commodities and they feel that, the commodity was used so it has to be paid, but they're having a tough time dealing with the city charges. And so that's where Nancy said, it's now in John Shockley and Chris Volker's court to talk with the Department of Commerce and really tell us, the city's contractor, what they would like us to do at this point. Because the Department of Commerce has no problem with Moorhead Public Service collecting for its services. It's having a problem with Moorhead Public Service using the disconnection of electric and water services to collect for city services. And maybe one final thing, and this came out at our meeting on January 2nd too, is Moorhead, because we're a border city, because we have maybe more challenges than other Minnesota cities, the city has a lot of service fees on our bill, more than probably any other city in the state of Minnesota. So the Department of Commerce is seeing this in Moorhead first. It probably will continue to grow throughout the state, but they're wrestling with Moorhead as really a leader in collecting for services other than in the tax rolls.
My understanding, though, is the other extreme is that they would discontinue the program operating via an agency or via an agency to the utility, and as a last measure, pay the customer directly, send a check directly to the customer, so that West Central is out of the picture and we're actually out of the picture. They just, unfortunately, they would send the money to the consumer.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah, and I mean that gets real complicated. I don't think that's something that they want to do. We're somewhat indifferent on that one because we'll likely get mostly paid whether they give it to to their client, our customer, or they work with us. But we're certainly willing, and we think it's the best approach to work it through us.
I guess my level of discomfort right now is that I'm not certain that we're talking to each other again. The city was represented at the meeting on January 2nd, and it seems like we still have some things that we're trying to work out that have to do with our collection on the other portion of the utility bill of streetlight fees and recycling fees and all those sorts of things that the Department of Commerce doesn't want to pay for with their utility program, right?
Correct. But we are talking. I mean, I've had, Chris Volkers and I bet have had at least a half a dozen meetings in the last 3 months over this issue. John Shockley has been involved in meetings with us and meetings directly with the Department of Commerce where we've been involved via conference calls. Nancy's been involved, Mark's been involved. So it still has some work to do to get resolved. The interesting part, is that the city and the Department of Commerce need to get together on how they want to handle it. And, because the way we're handling it right now is the way we've always, or generally always handled it. Yeah. We are disconnecting people in order to collect for the city charges. And that is what the Department of Commerce does not like. And that's between the Department of Commerce and the city. We're saying, city, we're your contractor, just tell us how you want to do it. If they don't want us to disconnect electric and water in order to collect city services, we won't. But then the city's at risk because there could be a lot of uncollectibles.
Well, I think everybody in the room is concerned, and I expressed this last month a bit, but I think everyone in the room is concerned about the potential black eyes, and I'm not even sure, where the hammer's coming in that's about to give us a black eye. But this conversation continues and continues and continues. And
do you want to hear one more issue that muddles this all up?
Sure. What the heck? Yeah.
Well, the Department of Commerce and the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission regulate Xcel Energy. Mm-hmm. They do not regulate a municipal utility or a city government. The city government is controlled by its city council and the utility is controlled by its commission. Mm-hmm. So when the Department of Commerce comes in and says, hey, we don't like the way you're doing this, they're acting like they're talking to Xcel Energy, mm-hmm. where they control what they do. They really don't have any say in what we do. So we're having a polite conversation where they're saying, we don't like this, and we're saying, yeah, but our local officials have told us to do it this way. Mm-hmm. And, the only risk, and it's a significant one, is that the Department of Commerce, if they don't get their way, they could go and introduce legislation that says, we would like to regulate municipal utilities. No, we don't want to see that. None of the other utilities want to see that. But other than that, they really don't have a say in what we do. We have local control. And so this all might just kind of go away if they decide, yeah, we don't really have any control here, we don't like it, but the local authorities in Moorhead can do whatever they want to do. And that's where we're waiting for the city to say, we're saying, how do you guys want us to do this? Do you want us to continue to disconnect electric and water service in order to collect city bills?
And I think that's where we probably all would like to be, is that we know and that we're firm in our understanding of what our relationship is in this with the city, so that we are collecting with the same idea of how it is that we're going to collect, and that we're treating the customers in the way that we have agreed that we're going to treat the customers.
Yeah.
And that we don't have these gray areas. So, Mary.
Thank you, Dave. A couple of questions just for Nancy and Bill, just for my own learning curve here. So am I correct, the Department of Commerce said, don't use the disconnect option only for those getting heating assistance? Is that correct?
That's a gray area yet we haven't defined. Some of the documentation appears to say only for these 1,200 households. Some of it appears to be broader and based on our total customer base.
Okay.
So
and then
not clarified yet.
Okay. And then you indicated that ostensibly there could be 25% of the bill left at the end of the expenditure from the heating assistance. Are there payment plans available for those people, for those customers?
Sure. I mean, what happens is they get the credit from West Central that shows on their account. We continue to send them a bill that shows them the remaining balance, and would hope that they paid that.
And what I'm asking is, so when they get to, April, and there's still a balance that the heating assistance didn't cover, and is there a payment plan available for them, or are they required to make that entire payment in order for their services to continue?
We normally would encourage people to pay as they go, on that April 15th or whatever date. Once, if they haven't done anything all year, if they haven't made payments, done their part or anything, eventually they would get disconnected. At that point, it's really hard to do a payment arrangement to be turned back on because they've got a new bill every month, so it compounds. I mean, the longer that they don't make a partial payment every month, that just compounds the problem, and it probably gets beyond what they can afford at that point.
Well, and so then what is the option then?
At that point, we do look at doing disconnects.
Okay.
And then for the majority of those people in that situation, they're going to, we do the referrals out to the other agencies, and we do the referrals, the social service agencies kick in and they help. And they do. The other agencies work all throughout the winter too. So the referrals are constant, and that's the role that we make those referrals out, and those agencies assist the customers in finding other resources.
Okay. And another question I have, what is the time span of the billing dates? Is it one calendar month? Is it 2 weeks, 3 weeks? How long is it between billing dates?
We send out one bill a month, so the days on the bill may vary, 28 to 31 days depending on meter reading, but each customer is billed once per month.
Okay.
There may have been a situation where a due date on a bill fell 2 in 1 month. We've corrected that. We'd made a small adjustment when we adjusted some policies slightly to allow more time in the collection process, and it did affect one cycle of bills. So 1/10 of our customers received one bill in a month, but 2 due dates because the second bill was due a day earlier.
Okay. And then question, throw out to you. Are there payment plans available for people who are not on fuel assistance?
We do offer the payment plans and, the opportunity to extend the payment beyond the due dates or the cutoff due dates up to the point of disconnection. Once we do disconnection, then we need to have it paid in full because the next bill, they've used another month of service, and the next bill is normally coming out within the next several days.
So there's no carryover or fraction of a bill carried over to the following months?
once the disconnect has taken place that needs to be paid, yes. So they get a clean start. Otherwise, in 3 more days, they're right back in the collection process again.
Okay. With a disconnect, is there a deposit required to get it reconnected?
Well, we've done a couple different things. So we don't collect deposits on the front when people are moving into Moorhead unless they've left us with a bill. Last time they lived in Moorhead and didn't pay their bill, so we would require a deposit upon their re-entry into our service. Otherwise, right now, the deposit is $150 if you've been disconnected. However, we've been waiving that, so it's kind of a first time, if this is first time, we're waiving 100 of that, so we're collecting 50. And then educating and saying, if you've got the one-time waiver on the 100, if it happens a second time, we'll collect the remaining 100 on the deposit.
Okay. Would there be social services financial assistance available for people in that situation?
Yes, we're always referring, the big agencies that we use are for energy assistance, West Central, of course, Clay County Social Services, Lakes and Prairie is taking the lead. I think they've stepped up in the last year or year and a half and takes the lead on taking doing the intake for these customers / clients and finding the right resources for them. So, there's probably 10 different agencies that we work with on a daily basis that are assisting customers.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate the answers.
John?
Nancy, you might want to just add, as far as in some of these cases for these agencies to get involved, they actually need to have the customer receive a disconnect notice. So it's all a process that if they don't get a disconnect notice, then they can't get assistance. So we have to give them a disconnect notice so they can get assistance in some of these cases.
Correct. So a lot of times the disconnect notice or the actual disconnect has taken place, and those are the things that bring the other agencies into action. And what we've done recently, and one of the changes in our policies, is we've increased the time between the disconnection notice that goes out, so their first notice that they get that, hey, you're delinquent, you're past due.
And that's on the bill, right, Nancy?
Yep, it's on the bill. They get a cutoff notice, and we're now giving them, after they get that bill, they've got 3 weeks, to take some action, get the past due paid. They will always drop out of our process by paying the past due amount on a bill unless they do nothing and they end up being disconnected. So from the time they get the cutoff notice till a phone call, they've got about 3 weeks there to do something. Go to the agencies. They've always got that list of agencies. So pay the bill, pay the past due, start that process. You've got your cutoff notice in your hands. Start that assistance process. We would encourage them to do that as soon as they get that bill with a cutoff notice on it.
And Bill, you indicated that the Department of Commerce is expressing concern that the disconnect strategy, at least in the winter, is a problem for them with any customer, not just an assistance customer, or what? Or are they just protecting their investment?
Nancy mentioned that, so I'll let her finish that thought.
What they're suggesting now, that is, once one of these 1,200 customers qualifies for some assistance, that we can't disconnect them throughout the whole 12-month cycle, because they always may qualify for more assistance. So their bottom line is they would ask that they would be a protected class throughout their fiscal year, which is like August 1st through July 31st. So once they receive assistance, there's always the possibility they might get more, so they become protected.
So if somebody has gotten 4 months of assistance, theoretically, they could not pay for 8 additional months at all, right? You wouldn't be able to disconnect.
Correct. They may get four payments of assistance, and then after that runs out, they may qualify for some crisis assistance, which might be another $600. And once that's used, there may be other money, available through the federal or the state, so they may be eligible for further assistance.
But the utility would bear the cost of those 8 months or whatever, in my example of the 8 months where we didn't get payment, right?
Correct. It's a possibility, right? Depending on what assistance does develop.
Yep.
Correct.
And if that's the case, we need to, I mean, obviously we need to look at what we do on the, reserve side, or what we set aside for eventualities like this if we actually get into a discussion that this is the rule. And like Bill said, if they really push this way, then we need to make sure that we have enough set aside for people, that we know that if somebody has been on assistance for 4, we may not be able to bill for another 8. Is that right? So, okay.
Mary, you're up, and then Steve.
Thank you. Quick question. Are there any Minnesota statutes that address this issue?
Directly, no. There's a Minnesota cold weather rule that lays out a lot of requirements and payment arrangement options and things. So customers, when they fall under the Minnesota cold weather rule from October 15th to April 15th, get a lot more information from us. They get information on their rights and responsibilities, their right to enter into a payment schedule. So a whole packet of information gets mailed out to those customers whose heat would be affected by a disconnect. And we work with those throughout the winter months.
Okay, thank you.
Steve?
I apologize, but I have a 5:30 meeting that I have to get to, so.
Well, then we just have to let you go during all this fascinating stuff.
Thank you.
But we appreciate you being here and listening in, especially on this conversation, because we've got, as I indicated earlier, we got a few things to get together on. So
Yeah, I look forward to serving on the
Thank you.
commission.
appreciate it. Thank you. We've kind of beaten this one quite a lot. Anything else, folks? Okay, Nancy, thank you very much for the information.
You're welcome.
And as John indicated, it is an update on the meeting that had taken place. We've got some work to do yet, but thanks for the frank conversation. Appreciate it. Also, if you would, Bill, if we could talk about a report that needed to be filed. We evidently missed a deadline, so what have we done to remediate and catch up with what we...
Yeah, I'll have Travis Schmidt come up and talk about this a bit. It has to do with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, where we've got a lot of regulations on our reserve capacity generating station that's over by Moorhead Youth Hockey.
Right.
Yeah, if you just give the high level details, Travis, and really one thing too that happened is the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, I'm supposed to be the one that they're sending the correspondence to. For some reason, they sent it to our new mayor, and that was really an error. So, tough to tell a mayor to just disregard that letter, but we could kind of tell them to just disregard that letter. But Travis can kind of go over the high level details. So we have responded to the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency with a kind of a plan of action.
Travis Schmidt, Electrical Engineering Manager. So with the MPCA, or Moorhead Pollution Control Agency, it's very similar to our NERC, or National or North American Electric Reliability Corporation, requirements that we need to follow. So on November 28th, 2018, we had an unannounced site visit from the MPCA to look over our facility and go through some of our documentation. Of that, there's 97 requirements that they went through with us. Roughly about 83 of those we were found compliant on. And then there's 12 of them that we were found not compliant on. Now, if you look at that, we have 10 generators at the facility. So 2 of the requirements were because of the 5 generators each. So it really comes down to a 4 requirement issue. We provided a response to them on January 11th, which I provided a letter, a couple letters, the MPCA letter and the response from Moorhead Public Service on that. Prior to sending that letter, we actually had several conversations with the MPCA. We provided them our response or corrective action plan. They were comfortable with what they had seen. We did have a conversation with them that dealt with what the intent of the letter of warning was for. And really, it's their lowest level of enforcement, and it's really just to get the permit back in compliance, or the facility back into compliance. Basically, the 4 requirements that we had issues or concerns with, most of those things were just minor errors that just needed to have a quick update on and a fix on our process on how we collect certain things. So there will be no fines or financial obligations to the letter of warning, so we're not getting fined any charges for this as well, too.
Travis, was there an original due date for our response to those items?
To the letter of warning?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we received the letter of warning on the 7th via mail from the MPCA. We had a 15-day window to respond to them. We responded by the 11th.
By the 11th.
I think maybe you were asking the same question I was thinking about. Was there, after they visited us in November, was there a due date they gave us in November? We want you to answer by X date.
No. So they mid-November they provided us a preliminary report and said that they would be providing a letter of warning, but that letter of warning would be coming at a later date. So we knew that we were going to be getting the letter of warning. We just hadn't received the final, what was actually going to be called the letter of warning.
So their letter of warning basically is a notice saying you got to fix this.
Correct. Yep. And then they give us 15 days to put together a plan to fix that, and that's what our response was back to them on the 11th.
So essentially, we have met the
right
the
now we've
requirements
sent our corrective action plan, which is the letter that is in front of you tonight, and we were waiting for a response back on that. However, we've had a preliminary conversation with them, and they were comfortable with our corrective action plan, which is we've provided to them. They actually received it today.
Okay. All right. Questions, anyone? John?
Apparently, this was just brought to us today, so I haven't had a chance to read this. So could you just elaborate a little bit more as far as what the sightings were and how we addressed them?
Yep. So we have to carry a 12-month rolling calculation of the sulfur content of the fuel that's in our underground storage tank there. And we had been inputting that data that one, we were missing one bill of lading. We didn't have a bill of lading within our records. And so we got that from the fuel delivery company and provided that to the MPCA to clear that issue up. There's also a calculation that we have to do on a monthly average based off of how much fuel we've used and how much fuel is in our tanks. And there's a calculation that we have to do, and for some reason the calculation hadn't been working for like a 6-month period. So we fixed that formula, showed them actually while they were still on site to take care of that as well too. One of the requirements was that we needed to get a fuel sample of every delivery to prove that we had less than 500 parts per million of sulfur content, even though the bill of lading actually shows that the fuel can only be 15 parts per million or less. We weren't aware of that, and so going forward, we'll be getting a fuel sample on every delivery. Roughly, we get one fuel delivery on a calendar year. And then the final issue we had was when we renewed our permit back in, I think, 2016, we had to do a stack test and provide a testing plan. And there was a couple questions that we were having back and forth with the MPCA because of we only use this facility about 10 hours a year, and it's an 8,240 hour facility. We can use it that much annually. And we only use about 10 hours a year, and they wanted us to do a stack test annually, which is about a 4-hour runtime. So we requested a change to a 1 year based off the amount of use. We got approval on it. However, by the time we were able to get the letter based off that test frequency plan, it was past the 60-day due date. So long story longer.
He's getting technical, folks.
So I'm going to make a flippant comment here. Is this a non-issue?
This is a non-issue. So we've basically talked to the MPCA. There's no fines. It's just it's their way of helping us get back into compliance with the permit. So it's a non-issue.
Are you comfortable with the 4 points as far as your response on?
Yep. Yep.
So when they show up again for one of their unannounced.
Yep. Yeah. Basically, what you see in front of you tonight is our corrective action plan that we've actually already implemented so that we can take care of it as we go forward and they show up. So.
Okay. All right. Be sure to share this information. The mayor was here earlier.
Correct. I did provide a copy of the
Oh, did you?
letter
Okay.
and our response to Chris Volkers, the city manager, to provide to Jonathan, and one copy for herself.
Feel sorry for the guy. He's been in office for, 7 days, and he gets one of these. So,
Correct.
yeah. But yeah, thank you for your response. Anything else further from members? Okay.
Thank you.
Moving on through all of the asterisks on the agenda, let's go to item number 10, which we had pulled from the consent agenda to approve the water tower art agreement.
And
Ralph and I were actually talking about this one only because there were a couple of elements within the report that we thought were worth pointing out. And then also we need to
Appoint.
provide an additional person to serve on the Water Tower Art Committee. So, Chris?
Sure. I'll provide maybe a little bit of extra background on this item. We've been working on developing an agreement with the city of Moorhead with respect to the artwork on the I-94 tower since about mid-October. And just a general overview of the timeline before we get into the details of the agreement. So if you'll remember, we're in the process right now of designing and working on the Southside Water Tower, which will be built starting this spring and hopefully finished construction around July of 2020. The recoating of the I-94 water tower will start on or around July of 2020. So right after we finish construction of the Southside Water Tower, the I-94 recoating process will begin. We wanted to clarify and really get this agreement going. So we started this past October conversations with the city. And then this past December here, we had a really good meeting. Cheryl Dyson, Steve Gertz, and Heidi, along with city staff and myself, were able to really finalize all the terms of the agreement to something that was beneficial to both parties and mutually agreeable. A few of the high points, we've talked over quite a bit of the details with respect to the agreement, but just a brief overview. If you'll remember, we approved the contract to paint the I-94 tower back in June of 2018. Right. As part of that contract, we had a $28,500 allowance for the artwork. And basically, MPS would pay that allowance. That's still the case with this agreement. The main point of the agreement is that anything over that $28,500, which we've already committed to, would be contributed by the city as an excess cost. So we would construct whatever they propose, and then once the construction is complete, we would send them a bill for whatever past that $28,500 amount is. The other high points are that we have 2 commissioners assigned to the committee for the I-94, and I know the December meeting was the first one with respect to I-94. I know the city's undertaking a branding process right now, so there will be more meetings. I'm not sure when, but that process is ongoing. One item of note is that Cheryl Dyson had previously been assigned to the artwork committee for I-94 and Southside. We do need another commissioner to be appointed to both of those respective committees. With respect to the Southside Tower, I mentioned that in the beginning of this conversation. We're having an open house on February 4th. Most of the commissioners should have gotten an invite for that. And then following that open house, there'll be a number of subsequent meetings. So it'll probably be about 4 or 5 total meetings. We're conducting the Southside process similarly to what we did with Woodlawn. So it'll be a community input process and working with the same artists, and the facilitator for this project is Carrie Lee Kinslow. So a similar process for the Southside Tower. Nonetheless, a good process on the agreement. Glad we were able to finalize that. And then we do need an appointment to both the Southside Water Tower Art Committee and then the I-94 Water Tower Art Committee. So a lot of information.
Okay. Why don't we take those up separately? The Southside Water Tower, Cheryl was already working with the group that was starting to assemble that, right? And then Chris? Chris was involved.
Yes.
So, Mary, actually, I was hoping that you might slide right into that slot. Cheryl was. And work with that Southside group on their water tower.
Happy to take one for the team.
There you go. All right. Well, I appreciate that. And then, actually, we haven't talked about the I-94 project, but if there's anyone among the group that would like to be involved in that one, there's a big smile on his face.
No, I do sludge plants. I don't want to.
Yeah, he does sludge plants, that's right. That's right.
Did she just volunteer?
I think this is hazing.
It's really not. It's really not. But frankly, I have a fairly high interest in the I-94 project, so I'd be willing to do that one for the team as well. So if that sounds all right with the rest of you, I'll appoint myself for I-94, and Mary, you can take the south side. All right.
With Chris or?
Yeah. Chris, did we need two? Or
Chris has previously been appointed to both.
to both? Okay.
Yes.
So you're there, kid. You're
So
already there, and there's
you're
no
fully
way out.
allocated.
And there's no way out. So, okay, so I'll join you on that one. So, okay. Chris, anything further? That Chris, not that Chris or that Chris.
Just one note.
Chris is all over the room.
One final note on the agreement. One of the provisions stipulates that of the I-94 water tower agreement that even if the no matter what the cost is for whatever the city proposes for I-94, that the commission would approve that excess cost. So we will have to go through a contractual amendment process to approve the overage if there is one. There is a stipulation that the commission would approve that. So you wouldn't have a discretion if, for example, you didn't like whatever was done. But nonetheless, I think
We
it's a
have a
good
process.
agreement. Yeah.
We have a process, so we're
So we would approve, and the city would pay the difference, basically.
Correct. Yeah.
Of course. We entertain a motion.
I'd entertain a motion then if we're done talking about all these things.
I move to approve item number 10.
Got a motion to approve item number 10. Second?
Second that.
Second?
Can we get some formal action with respect to the appointments as well? So
Yeah.
approve 10 and then appoint Commissioner Anderson to I-94 and appoint,
Are you comfortable with that in your motion?
Why don't I just put that into my motion?
okay, we'll do that.
Can you guys figure it out? So
Yep.
approval of the agreement and approval of the two appointments.
Correct.
As part of the motion. Okay.
That's fine.
That's
You're
Yep.
good with that, Cheryl? Got it all?
Is that okay? Or do you want two motions?
Okay. No.
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 Yep, I'll
I
help.
do not want to.
I was talking.
I'm the chairman. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Did we have a second?
Huh?
Did we have a second?
I thought we did have a
I
second.
was a second.
Yeah, okay. Is the seconder good with the addition?
With the amended
With amendments?
resolution, yes.
Okay, all right. Now we have a motion and a second with those revisions. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion is approved. There doesn't seem to be anything else for us to do tonight. Then I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Quick question, are we going to have a February 5 meeting?
Are we going to have a February 5th meeting?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
we're planning on that. Yep. And it'll be out at the dispatch center.
Okay, plan on the full agenda in February then. Anybody going to any meetings?
Just take a look at the meetings that are there. There's a legislative conference, state one, and then a federal one as well. So
Bill, is there any reason for us to be in St. Paul for that one? Or do we have issues that require voices or?
well, it's just keeping the relationships up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when the legislators are in town, talk to them. I go down there because there's also updates on the utilities legislative items. So,
That's what you get paid the big bucks.
yeah, yeah. So
I was
it's,
down there last week, actually had good contacts with our local elected people, so, you know, I'm good on that.
yeah.
And then I believe I'm still planning to go to the national
Yep,
conference.
yep. And that's a good one as
Not
well.
sure I
Just-
want to fly because there aren't any air control, traffic controllers coming to work anymore, so. You know, every man for himself. John?
Speaking of meetings, Bill, I think in the past we had you do orientation meetings and maybe site visits or something of that
Yeah.
sort. So
Oh, yeah.
that's something we've kind of slipped in the past, so we don't want to happen. But-
Right, right. No, we'll definitely get Mary orientated.
Ralph
to
will show
speed.
you the sludge stuff.
Yeah.
Well, there's super secret initiation stuff going on, so this is not an easy thing. Okay?
Yeah, she thought she'd been hazed already. Okay, with that, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Got second? All in favor? Whoop, Chris?
No, I was just going to, just a general note, we'll likely have the March 5th meeting as well. There's a number of
Okay.
bids and plans and stuff that this will need this spring, so just to.
Back on schedule.
Yep, sorry to
Back on
interrupt your
schedule.
motion.
We'll plan on, okay. All in favor?
Right.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign? Thank you very much.